This is the data that I was leading up to in terms of
drum roll.
Yeah, I mean, I just find this extraordinary because there was an article on the BBC about conversion rate, and before that I started mining the Opta data. So what we've got here, the top table is game weeks 1 to 29 last season, so pre-lockdown, and then game weeks 30 to 38. And what you see here is conversion rate excluding penalties raised after the restart. It raised from 14% to 15.3%. So a small increase in goal conversion. This is shots on target which turn into goals effectively, or shots that turn into goals. But look at this season, the table below. 2021, the conversion rate excluding penalties is currently 19.5%. In previous seasons, the best has been, well, in the previous 10 seasons, the best has been 14.3%. So it's up 5% or more than 5% on all previous seasons. I mean, it's up by 7% on seasons going back 5 years. So basically, strikers are converting more chances for some reason. And then you look across, and the save percentage is down to 57.7%. So keepers are saving fewer shots. Obviously, the two go together. Shot accuracy is up. Why are strikers being more accurate with their? It's not just strikers, obviously. Why are players being more accurate with their shooting?
Well, you said earlier it was unsustainable, but I don't see why it is unsustainable. I mean, it's a completely different landscape for strikers. I mean, not taking a shot and not having tens of thousands of opposing fans screaming you're a whatever.
Do you think that's a factor?
Yeah, I think it probably is. And think about penalties as well. I mean, think about how many penalties have been taken and how many penalties have been missed. I think we've only had one miss from penalties, haven't we? Which was, or maybe two. I think if you're a striker and you're taking a shot or something like that in a game where there's no fans, I think you've got a better chance of scoring, personally, whether it's the pressure of your own fans or the opposition.
But I mean, that conversion rate doesn't include penalties, so take them out of it completely. They're just converting more shots into goals.
Just using that as an example because I mean, I don't know what the scoring rate of penalties is this season compared to other seasons. It's just kind of a separate thing, but I do think the confidence of playing behind closed doors, I've always thought would be up. And you saw it, I mean, look at Sterling. I think it was perfect for Sterling last season because he endured a pretty frustrating season. And then lockdown came in and then football came back on. And suddenly Sterling was banging them in again for fun. So yeah. What was the turnaround with him? Was that confidence
it's
thing?
Weird that it would affect everybody in the same way. It's not just one or two players. It's the entire Premier League, which I find difficult to understand. And when you look at the other stats here, big chance per game. So big chances per game, excluding penalties, it's down on last season. So the average last season was 3.7% per game. At the moment, it's 3.3%. So it's not like there's more opportunities to score. It's just when opportunities do come up, they're converting more of them, or keepers are saving fewer of them. And I don't really get what that could be. Because I'd expect to look at this, well, there's obviously more chances. Well, there isn't. There isn't. Chance creation isn't up. It's just they're taking them. Which is bizarre. Okay, well then look at this then. This is looking at expected goals, right? So this is expected goals data. The top table is expected goals data for the teams and from game weeks 1 to 4 this season compared to game weeks 1 to 4 last season. And what we've got highlighted there is the expected goals data. That is the number of goals they're scored, each team, minus their expected goals. And what's clear there is that almost every single team in the Premier League so far has exceeded their expected goals tally. Whereas you look at last season, and only 8 teams did that at this point. So the expected data suggests there is no way this can be sustainable. Absolutely no way, because they're just over. They're over.
All the teams goals. Are over.
Yeah, every single one of them, barring Sheffield United, who are down there on minus 256. So Sheffield United were expected to score 2.5 more goals than they have, which is why I'm holding Brewster. But every other team is over delivered, and yet last season at this point it was about half the division. So there's a clear difference there. Now, is it down to empty stadiums, or is it just pure outlier and it's going to level out over the next few games?
But it's interesting that like it is all the teams. It is so many. It's not like a couple of teams sort of over indexing and sort of skewing the numbers a bit more. The fact it is happening consistently across all of the different teams makes me think that there is something in it, and it is something that could continue.
You feel that? You don't think it's going to regress then? You think we're going to see this trend to some extent continue? Maybe not as stark as this, but you think it will be the case? That
is my early impression. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at this and think, well, again, one of the reasons why I haven't played my wildcard is I don't feel confident yet I can suss this season out. And this kind of does reinforce that. It suggests that it is all going to change, and there's going to be quite a shift, because unless expected data is not valid, then we're going to see every team regress somewhat. And so until that levels out a bit, that I don't want to be changing my team lock, stock and barrel. But you could be right. It might be that this is a trend that continues. It's just fascinating though, isn't it, to see this, because utterly bizarre. And there's a lot of speculation as to why it might be. But at the moment, the popular opinion is it's just we've had two extreme game weeks, game week 2 and 4, which apparently since Opta have started gathering expected goals data, those 2 game weeks, 2 and 4, have been the game weeks where teams have exceeded their expected goals the most since, I think, over the last 6 seasons. So they are extreme cases. Now, it's unknown at the moment whether we're going to see that continue or whether it's going to regress. You'd think the latter, but maybe not.
It's interesting. I mean, looking at the comments in the chat. I mean, some people saying, "Oh, it's only 4 game weeks," and can't really look at this kind of stuff. But it gives you an early indication of what's happening, and the idea is that you track it and you see, well, is it a complete anomaly? In 4 weeks' time, if the numbers still look like this, then clearly it is a pattern, and you need to kind of monitor it to know kind of a baseline for where we're at the moment compared to what happens over the season. I mean, FPL Phenom says, well, we didn't see these numbers sort of after project restart happens, but it's a new normal now, isn't it? Like it's very different when it first happens and teams are adjusting and trying to work out what to do, and maybe there's a bit less, the atmosphere that players are struggling, not quite adjusting to the fact there's no atmosphere and all that. But now it is kind of more normalized. I wonder if it is the kind of normal to have these kind of numbers and this kind of conversion. I don't know. Like you say, it's a really tough one to know, because we are only so early into the season. But those numbers are really interesting. If teams all continue to outperform their XG, then it really is going to be a case of getting the most attacking players and back them.
Logic says they can't, and logic says that we're going to see a change, but we're not certain. And I think that sums up the season. We know we're in the middle of something very, very odd, right? The data says that, right? This is far from normal, and the data suggests that it's going to shift back. But we'll just have to sit and wait. And that's kind of my advice, I think, for people who look at it and go, "Oh no, I need to play the wildcard." I think unless your team is in really bad state, I think it's a good idea to hold, because everything suggests we're going to see the season patterns shifting again. And maybe it's down to a lack of pre-season. Maybe the lack of defensive stability is down to the fact that coaches haven't had long enough to coach that kind of thing. I don't know. I mean, there's all kinds of theories about it, but I think
it's just a leveler as well, isn't it? Like, you go to Anfield when there's tens of thousands of fans, and all the atmosphere and the players thrive off it and all that kind of stuff. And now you go there and it's like playing at the Hawthorns. Like it just levels out. The games become almost like training games, and it's just what teams can get the best handle on it and adapt to it the best. And I think certain players, like Sterling did, maybe thrive on it if they're feeling pressure and they and they can kind of, they've just got the coaches shouting them, other players shouting them. It must be a bit of relief to kind of be in that situation. And I wonder, like, psychologically for a striker, I think some would thrive off the back of, cupping their ears to the crowd and, getting abuse and hushing them and all that kind of stuff. I think for others, treating it like more of a training game and where they may be banging goals for fun and then struggle in the bigger matches, it must be something quite nice.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Vardy. Obviously, he's had the penalties, but aside from that, he has worried me in terms of touches on the ball and chances. His data, he's never been big for stats, but it's down a lot, even on previous seasons, as you would have seen in the KPIs. So he's a player you think maybe he's struggling because of lack of crowds, whereas Sterling the other way maybe. It's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, what's clear though is that this has been a starker change and more bizarre than the 8 game weeks we saw at the tail end of last season. And it could be that that's because, Liverpool had sewn up the title maybe, and there was an established kind of almost like a set of rules, and the players just played out the season effectively, apart from the teams threatened by relegation who had everything to play for, of course. Whereas now it's a new start. Maybe you're right. Maybe the fact that no crowds is a leveller is playing a bigger factor. But I think there's going to be change. I think it can't continue in the way it has. That's pretty obvious. But I think it's going to be quite a marked change. I think defences are going to get better, and goalkeepers are going to make fewer errors soon, and there's going to be fewer goals. And I think, I think holding the wild card until it's levelled out a bit, and we'll track this as we go, might be the wisest thing to do.
With crowds, there's no way that Liverpool and Man U are getting battered like that. In the way that they did. No,
you wouldn't have thought.
Last season, just no way. Surely
it would have been crazy to see the Old Trafford crowd there for that game. And
even look at Barcelona getting thrashed against Bayern Munich. Was it 8-2? Was it in that game? I know Barcelona have got their problems on and off the field, but that is just such a comprehensive win for them. Apart from Brazil losing to Germany all those years ago, I can't really remember such a ridiculous scoreline from 2 absolutely top teams like that, and we're seeing it a lot more regularly now. So yeah, it's very, very weird.
Well, maybe we're just going to be sitting here waiting for it to change. It never will, but I think it's something we've got to track, and what this data shows, it's been utterly bizarre in so many ways.